my name's Elegan Kramer, and my job title is the Director of Instructional Technology and Digital Literacy at a private suburban high school here in St. Louis, Missouri. And this is my second year on the job. And I basically help teachers integrate technology within their classroom and kind of problem solve and also just thinking more on the instructional technology side and how to integrate technology meaningfully and within like their curriculum. So it's not really fully implemented at our institution. I will say there are some students who have a passion project, and we do have a VR like headset. Actually, we have a few of them, and so we just kind of lend it out to students. Or if a teacher is doing something, they would just borrow a headset so that the students can see it in VR. So very field trip like. Um, very passive where it's kind of like they're just going to use the VR as a place to see like an experience. I came from a public school, so I was just navigating through a lot of changes, and so I wasn't able to really dive deep into it last year, but this year I am, and I know that this by being involved in the Zoe Creative Program, it has really helped me better understand VR, specifically like the Meta platform and the Quest 2s. And what I really like about the Zoe Creator Program, as opposed to what I've been seeing, is that the Zoe is a chance for the students to be creators in a VR headset as opposed to a consumer. And so that's what I'm really excited about with going forward and kind of using Zoe as a main, like one of the main software main platforms within VR. A little bit about myself. So before this position, I was a distance learning developer at a local school district, large suburban school district. I was in that position for 3 years. And really, that was during COVID. And so it was just trying to teach teachers about technology. And the reason I got into technology so much is before that, I was a former science teacher. For 13 years. And the reason I'm sharing this before I like jump into what I created is because my creation is very science oriented. And so, but like when I taught science, technology has always been embedded, I feel like, with science. Science uses a lot of technology. And so that's kind of how I got into the technology field, is because I always try to incorporate technology with my students. And so the experience that I created was something that came about because we were fishing over Labor Day. And I thought about sustainability and overfishing because I personally have two little kids. I have a first grader and a fourth grader here in the US. And they asked about these questions, and that kind of what jumpstart on creating my VR experience. And so it's about sustainability in the ocean. Where basically how can we, well, I wanted to be like, how can we maintain ocean sustainability, but it kind of goes to a darker path, in the sense that like it's kind of a choice, kind of escape roomish, kind of like going into the future. I know there were some other people who mentioned like creating escape rooms and also like jumping in time. So it's kind of like a mesh of all of those, as in it opens up in the scene, like in an ocean, and the students would see like how many fishes there are. And so they would pick how many fish they want to fish from that environment, and then they would basically fish. And if they pick too many fishes down the line, then basically there would be no fish in the sea to help support. And then all the ecosystems would be very different, right? So that was like one path, just to talk about like if someone were to overfish, what would happen to our oceans? Of course, not everybody likes to fish, or maybe some people don't want to fish. So then there is another option where just thinking about in terms of ocean sustainability, where if you don't fish, well, something else can happen. I focused on pollution a little bit. So then like just thinking about choices that we make and how that would impact the ocean when we make those choices. I know when I applied at the very beginning, at the start of the program, I thought about like Rube Goldberg, but Rube
Yes.
Goldberg has always been kind of material intensive, right? Like the students have to gather all these different materials and create. And there is that really cool aspect, like to see it in person. But I just thought like this would just be provide like another kind of medium for the students to
Mhm.
manipulate to create that Rube Goldberg machine. I know like within the Zoe Creative program, there's opportunity with like the different interactions, which I thought was really cool. But if like a student is able to like put it all together, like I used to have like basically you make your own Rube Goldberg machine. You have to have all these six different simple machines and talk about all of
Mhm.
that. If a student's able to do that within Zoe, I think would be really cool and just like providing that as a different medium if maybe they don't have like all of the materials to create the Rube Goldberg machine. I think by creating like if a student creates their own VR lesson or VR experience, it incorporates the idea of like that digital literacy, right? Like knowing
Mhm.
how VR works, like all of the different components to think about when creating a VR experience. I also think like if we are putting it on the student or even the teacher, right? As you're creating these experiences, there's a chance to build empathy for like whoever you're creating with, or yeah, creating with, I should say. So like that's why I think it's really nice to be able to create it as opposed to like a kind of a canned curriculum. Not to say that it's not great, but I think it adds a different level of experience when you're creating it as opposed to like a canned curriculum. I have such a curiosity, like that's I would say just one of my life values to be a lifelong learner. And so I would just say go for it. It's a really cool experience, and Um, I will say, like when I first used the Quest 2s, I do get motion sickness easily. So I had to build my tolerance to it. So at the beginning, I did get really dizzy. But as I started, I would say, like when I started creating my own experiences and like actually physically like manipulating with all of the materials and like actually creating it, it got easier for me. And
Mhm.
so for the teachers who are a little bit hesitant, I always say just try something new. This is a great experience to try something new. And it really, I can see it. I know I haven't done it yet, but I can see it engaging students that maybe aren't usually engaged in school, right? It reaches to a different level of engagement. And so that's also why I would do it is just to try and engage students in learning. And I think that's just a really cool experience.